So I'd really like to have Mr. Denis Jordy of the Pacific, who works in the Pacific region, and particularly with the Solomon Islands, who was able to join us for the technical deep dive. Please, Denis.
Thank you very much. It's the last presentation, so I will try to be as short as possible so that we can respond to your questions, but also start a discussion. I'm here to talk about the work we are doing in Solomon Island on integrated flood risk management. It's a very early stage engagement. Everything started after the flash flooding that hit Solomon Island in April 2014. You see here the river Matanika. It crosses the town, the city of Honiara. And what happens is that we had 3 days of very heavy rains, and the river bursted its banks. And 22 people were killed, mainly people living here. And you can see here the settlements that were washed away. So they were living in informal settlement, and thousands of people were really displaced. So it was a major disaster for Solomon Island. Just a couple of other pictures on the disaster. You see the impact on housing, for instance, the impact on the airport, the disruption of the transport system. So it was really kind of, unfortunately, a wake-up call for Solomon Island. We conducted a post-disaster needs assessment, and were able to assess the impact on the economy. So it represented the total damage and loss 9% of the GDP, which is huge, right? It's a huge toll on the economy of Solomon Island. And it takes often years to recover for disaster events like that, and it happens a lot in the Pacific, unfortunately. One recommendation of the post-disaster needs assessment was, the government of Solomon Island requested the World Bank to explore the solution to reduce the risk and make sure that it never happens again to a certain extent, but we cannot eliminate all the risks. So that's why we agreed, or at the request of the government, to start to prepare the Honiara flood risk management plan with a vision which would be to have a city that would become much more resilient to weather extreme. So the purpose, and we haven't started yet, we are selecting the consulting firm at this stage, so that the purpose would be to develop an integrated flood risk management strategy based on a state-of-the-art flood modeling. And primary application would include to inform and city and land use planning. We were talking about the informal settlement, so how can we avoid that or resettle people? It would also inform the strengthening of the emergency response mechanism, including a flash flood warning system. And we will also assess the feasibility of potential flood mitigation options. We agreed with the government some ambitious high-level indicator. The first one, which would be to really improve the coordination between the government ministries and the city council. At this stage, it's not very efficient. We would incorporate flood risk management objectives in urban planning, policies and legislation. We would also develop an effective and sustainable flash flood warning system and response procedures. And at last, we will carry out some structural work to be defined to protect critical infrastructure and riverbank erosion. Just some of the river catchment in Honiara. It's the Matanika River especially. You see how short the catchment is and very steep slope, and hence the flash flooding. But we have also other river systems like the Longa River and the White River, and the plan will explore all these river systems. Some of the challenge that we have to address. First, very intense rain, and it's probably exaggerated by climate change, and this is a link to the first presentation. Flash flooding, which makes it's a challenge actually to design a flood early warning system and make sure that people can be warned on time. We have also very highly dynamic river channel, and again, the challenge here is what kind of engineering solution you can propose to the clients. It's very difficult. There are also limited capacity for land use planning and also a shortage of land available in Honiara. And this combined with rapid urbanization really drives the growth of informal settlements in the city. So it's a big issue. Very few data also, information on hydrological or on rainfall, on the flow in the river, because there is vandalism actually on the hydromet. So that's a big issue. We don't have the data, so we need to sometimes guess. But we have also some mechanism to address the issue of data gap. And at last, institutional arrangements of flood risk is characterized by silos. We have here a kind of way to illustrate that. There are many stakeholders involved, government ministries, we have the water company and sewage, we have the police, we have the response mechanism and so on, but there is no real coordination mechanism and no clear assignment of roles and responsibilities. So this has to be fixed. Just some of the key priorities we have in mind at this stage. The first one is really to enhance institutional coordination. So we are very basic, right? We will start at the beginning and put in place a steering committee, and maybe this could become a kind of platform for flood risk management and urban resilience overall in the city. We will try to understand better the flood risk through hydrologic and hydraulic modeling and urban growth survey as well. Some of the structural measures that we have in mind, but these are only options. We need to do the modeling first. Riverbank protection works, improving bridge design, reducing the disposal of solid waste in some of the creeks, possible works also at the airport to protect the airport against flooding. And structural measures, which are probably more important even in this situation, would be to modify the exposure and vulnerability of the people. What it means concretely would be, for instance, to create new subdivision in the city to make sure that we have land available. Voluntary resettlement of people living in very dangerous location. We want also to review the guidelines for hazard resilient housing. And the first non-structural measure is the flash flood warning system and improve also community preparedness and construct also emergency, evacuation shelters as well. So it was really great to be part of the technical deep dive. We learned a lot from the Japanese experience, and I'm talking here about. I expressed the voice of my counterpart, Mr. Kaobate, who is in the back of the room. So we learned a lot from this experience, from the training. Just a couple of takeaways. First, a good collaboration between the government, the private sector, the communities, as well as the households is critical for sustainable management of flood-prone areas. We have seen so many good examples during the week, and one of them was the Tsurumi River Catchment Center. It was really excellent to learn about this experience. The importance of a functional regulation and enforcement mechanism to control the design and the location of infrastructure and housing. Flood risk reduction requires strong engineering capacity as well. I mean, it's common sense, we know that, but we have seen so many great infrastructure in Japan. Probably this would be too sophisticated for Solomon Island, but we still need engineers. We need some of these structural measures as well to reduce the risk. And at last, coordination of response is very important. In Solomon Island, it works a little bit, but it can be improved, and we learned also on that during the week. So what we have learned will inform our studies, but also our project in the Pacific, not only in Solomon Islands, but also in other countries like Fiji and Samoa, where we are also engaging now. It's becoming a critical issue everywhere. And with climate change, we will probably have more heavy rainfall. So it's important to act now to become resilient. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Denis.